one of the best addresses in Greenville, Mississippi. Being buried anywhere else is a fate worse than death in Greenville. The FFGs, that's First Families of Greenville, would simply refuse to die if they weren't assured of a spot. Not that the old cemetery is strictly FFG, not by a long shot. Lola Bell Crittenden, bless her heart, had to plant a huge hedge around her ancestral plot. Why? The neighbors. They're so tacky, Lola Bell huffed. Although we always plan to have a good time at the reception, we revere the dead. Ancestor worship is as valid a form of religion as the Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, or Episcopal denominations in the Mississippi Delta. The cemetery is so sacred to the memory of our dead relatives that the whole town was up in arms when the local newspaper desecrated it. They did this by posing a high school beauty queen in front of one of our most important graveyard monuments for a picture. Nothing has upset us quite so much before or since. For days on end, nobody could talk about anything else, and the paper's letters to the editor page was filled with aggrieved missives. Old ladies shuddered at the thought that similar sacrileges might one day be committed on their graves. The paper had to grovel for forgiveness in print or face a serious drop in circulation. The newspaper was owned by Yankees, and, being outsiders, they just didn't know any better. We're people with a strong sense of community, and being dead is no impediment to belonging to it. We won't forget you just because you've up and died. We may even like you better and visit you more often. As the former Presbyterian minister used to say in his justly celebrated funeral oration, I'd like to have a dime for every time I've heard it. Dying just means you've graduated. We're good about remembering the dead with flowers on just about every holiday from Christmas Day to Groundhog Day. There's one family that was so intent on remembering Mama that they insisted on having her photographed in her coffin. The photographer balked but was finally persuaded. Afterward, the family flatly refused to pay. The eldest son explained why. Mama looked so sad. The old cemetery sees quite a bit of traffic from the living and the dead. This is a hard place to get out of. We invariably chortle when navigating our way through the gates and back onto Main Street. Some people, no doubt attracted by the prestige and the quiet, bucolic setting, have added to overcrowding problems by moving to the old cemetery years after they actually died. When Adele Atkins, a widow, married James Gilliam, a Greenville widower, she insisted on bringing her late husband Harry along. She asked whether she could rebury him on the Gilliam family plot. Adele's new in-laws, alas, already beginning to be packed into their plot like sardines in a can, were appalled. They were obsessed with who would go where when the day came, and, besides, they hated the notion of new dead people coming in and just taking over. But Adele is a determined woman, and she would not back down. Luckily for her, the Miss Finleys, two maiden lady schoolteachers, lived, or rather their dead relatives were buried, right next door to the Gilliams. Being old maids, they did not face the problem of potential overcrowding and were glad to have some extra cash. Adele purchased half their plot, and voila, Harry moved to Greenville. We worry a lot about what will happen when the old cemetery fills up. Whenever Alice Hunt, who lives in New York, comes to Greenville, she goes straight to the cemetery and stretches out on her spot to reassure herself that nobody has encroached. She plans to wait for the final trumpet next to her mama. Her big fear is ending up in the new part of the cemetery where, she says, she doesn't know a soul. There are a few fortunate families who don't have to worry about their future resting places because they still have private family cemeteries on plantations. This carries even more status than the old Greenville Cemetery, but it's a lot of trouble. Jane Jeffries Claiborne has spent her entire adult life fretting about the state of the old Claiborne Cemetery on Woodville Plantation. Every time